Most of you have never heard of the Zombie Hazard Unit. Those of you who have will try in vain to find me after you see this. For the rest of you, the activities of this top-secret working group have never before been revealed until now. They don't want you to know they exist. There are those of us in the community who feel the public has a right to know of the imminent threat we all face. The following is a briefing, covertly recorded, of the Zombie Hazard Unit at work.
All right, take your seats, everyone. We need to get this meeting started. Before we begin, I want to make sure that everybody has picked up their copy of the briefing notes. There are more details. I'm going to give you the outline. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I've called this special meeting of the Zombie Hazard Command because we have vital new information and new problems to discuss. Go through some security. Bear with me a moment. All right, first, a little housekeeping. National Security Order 21Z, it passed. Our operational authority is supreme. Use it. Now back to the topic at hand. As you know, we've been battling a unique biological threat and we've made little progress. Lack of any live specimens. If a body's found at all, it's already permanently dead. Now, we finally have a live specimen. But before you get too excited, let me stress that it's only one. We need more. So why does this problem exist? Well, the reason for problem number one is problem number two. We have an unknown assailant or assailants. Unknown assailant profile. We have no leads as to the identity of the assailant. Ballistics are untraceable. That's not exactly true. We do know at least most of the time they're using Z-Max ammunition. Weapons in use are 9mm, .45 caliber, and edged weapons. Probable gender, male. Body type, they're strong, muscular, athletic. They're well armed and well trained with munitions. They have a possible military or police background, and they're probably skilled in a variety of martial arts to include hand-to-hand combat. If you're on scene, look for someone fitting this profile. Apprehend if possible, eliminate if necessary. For you jokers out there, I know this describes everyone on the Z teams, so know your team members. Problem number three, identification of infectious agent. Here's where it gets interesting. We now have research notes from a top U.S. scientist who is intimately familiar with a zombie infection. He studied both the pre- and post-mortem zombie condition before PD. He has identified and named the virus, Cryptonecrophagia vulgaris, CNV. It's a retrovirus, and there's no cure. This scientist's notes indicate prions may also be involved in the infectious process. However, at this point it remains unclear what, if any, role they play. Remember the single live subject I mentioned earlier? Unfortunately, the subject and scientist are one and the same. We do not know how much time he has left before he's no longer of any use, except perhaps for dissection. So we need more live specimens. Keep that in mind during operations. Problem number four, mode of transmission, currently unknown. Transmission modes ruled out: bites, scratches, casual contact, vector infection, droplet, or airborne spread. Some Z team members can attest to the fact that bites and scratches don't spread infection, at least not yet. To date, 12 team members have been wounded while engaged in field operations. They've undergone mandatory 90-day quarantine. None have showed any signs of infection. Not all team members are out of quarantine yet, but we hope they'll be released and return to active duty soon. Problem number five, emerging public awareness of the situation. I'm going to mention each of these points, then talk about them in greater detail. There are things you need to know. First, the Coconut Grove fly-in. Many of you were there. Then there's the Miami incident. Some of you were there. The CDC Zombie Apocalypse Preparedness Release. DHS released a fake zombie preparedness story. Then there's the recent purchases of large quantities of ammunition. About the Coconut Grove fly-in, Z Teams 1, 2, and 3 cleaned down a zombie cell. That got a lot of public attention. Our cover story was that this was an urban assault exercise in preparation for the upcoming UN meeting. For now, our cover story is holding, but one got away. That led to the Miami incident. That should never have happened. About the Miami incident. Some of you were there. Our cover story was bath salts. That was blown when the autopsy results were leaked. There were no bath salts present. We're still dealing with the fallout, and we're investigating the leak. The CDC Zombie Apocalypse Preparedness release, it was sent out against our wishes. Then they changed their story. This brought even more attention to it than if they'd just left it alone. Next, DHS released a fake zombie preparedness story, also against our wishes, but it's out there, so we're going to use it as our cover story. Next month, DHS is running a 1,000-person training exercise in San Diego. Z Teams 2, 4, and 5 will be doing a cleanup operation in another part of the city at the same time. This gives us plausible deniability. I shouldn't have to stress how important this is. Make certain none of them get away. We don't want another Miami incident. About the ammo purchases. We've used news and various media outlets to float the idea that unprecedented large ammo purchases are for government agencies to defend against civil unrest in anticipation of economic collapse. Those of you in this room know all too well that this is a much nicer bedtime story than the truth. Reality is much less pleasant. Right now, the cover story is working. Problem number 6, weakening of current cover stories. Bath salts. In Florida, bath salts was a go-to drug of choice. The autopsy leak created problems for this story. Other drugs, synthetic marijuana and S21, were floating these in Louisiana, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. Crazy people were floating this idea in Louisiana, New York, and Chicago. Animal attacks were floating that story in Georgia, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. We estimate 2 years of viability for these cover stories. Finally, problem number 7, public distribution of full disclosure of current operations. Some brainiac has lined up all the recent events and past history like beads on a string. We don't know where he's getting his information, but too much of the actual facts of our operation are woven into the story. It's not coincidence. He's getting his information somewhere. The story is Dr. Eve Zombie Killer. It's presented as a fictional novel. LabyrinthOfArts.com is an independent website where the book can be found. For those of you who are wondering, we currently have no plans to shut down this website. We need to gather further intelligence, find out what their sources of information are, and plug whatever leaks we find. Right now, John Q. Public does not know what's happening. We'd like to keep it that way. If you have any questions, I'll address them in my office after the meeting. You now have the facts as we understand them. This briefing is adjourned. Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good day.
Many risks have been taken to bring this information to light, but there are those of us in the community that feel it's worth the risks. We believe the public has a right to know what's going on and how it's being covered up. This is real. It's happening now, all around you. Go to this site and check it out before it's too late, before we're silenced.